There's nothing wrong with fractionalizing an NFT and taking a home and saying, I'm going to fractionalize this massive ski house in Aspen. I'm going to split it into 20 parts and it's a timeshare. But as soon as you fractionalize it and you tie it to a legal contract, et cetera, you turn it into a security.
Dave is the CEO and founder of Vertalo, a digital transfer agent that connects and enables the digital asset ecosystem. He's a member of the DTCC Executive Advisory Board and a frequent speaker and author on the use of digital asset securities to reduce systemic friction in private asset markets. How you doing, Dave?
I'm great, Chris. How are you doing?
Doing good. So that intro is it's a mouthful, but it definitely speaks to your credibility on this topic. So we've had pretty rapid adoption, I think, with a small enthusiastic group, but by and large, cryptocurrency, NFTs, blockchain, it's still from at least a population standpoint, not a lot of users, but that really comes with a friction. And I was listening to a podcast earlier, the friction. There was a day when you basically had to be a computer programmer if you wanted to get on the internet.
Oh, yeah.
And then someone came out with, I think it was Netscape. It changed the world with browsers. Windows comes out somewhere in that. Now, anyone with a click of a button, you can basically do everything on the phone now.
Yep.
We're kind of in that stage with NFTs, right? In blockchain, where it's still clunky. It's not as user-friendly, but we're going to get there. What are your thoughts on that and how all of these services are going to reduce that friction just for the average person to be able to use NFTs, which is going to probably take over every aspect of our life?
Yeah, I would actually, rather than use Netscape, I would probably say America Online. Which is a little earlier than Netscape, and I think that NFTs have had their America Online moment, and they almost had a combination of America Online and Coinbase moment. America Online abstracted the technical complexity away from accessing the internet, which prior to that was command line and modems and Usenet and I was involved in rolling that out in businesses back in the day. And that was complex. You couldn't send a file to someone very easily before those things happened.
I remember these.
Oh yeah,
300 minutes or whatever.
Oh yeah, and then America Online abstracted away the concept of wallets and tokens away from from investing in digital assets, and so whenever you can improve the user experience and the presentation layer, you're going to help with adoption. Okay.
How far away do you think we are at that? Not necessarily that it means mass adoption, but where it paves the way for much greater adoption.
Well, I think that if you take a look at the NFT market was largely fueled by people who were stuck at home and they were bored. They got government checks. They had time to muck around, and then it in 2000, late 2020 or 2021, it took off. And I really think that was more of a societal function of people being bored, and it was an interesting run up. You might remember when CryptoKitties came out. CryptoKitties came out. CryptoKitties killed Ethereum for a while, and then it died. And then Dapper Labs came and OpenSea and all these folks, and I think that became pretty user friendly. I think though that there's taking NFTs from where they are now into a proxy for ownership in a real world asset. I think that's actually a much greater leap, and it's certainly there's a leap in the contractual legal ownership of the underlying property. So the thing about NFTs is that NFTs themselves are not on chain. Little understood maybe by some, but NFTs are in a server, and the smart contract gives you ownership to to that JPEG or PNG or whatever format that's in. So it's already kind of a split experience. And you can certainly copy an NFT, and you can put that up on your wall, and you don't own it, but you can get a representation of it, kind of like a poster of Elvis or something like that.
And the representation being the digital footprint on chain.
Yeah, I mean the only real ownership of the NFT is contractual ownership by the smart contract, and that smart contract just kind of points to a server somewhere, but they're ultimately completely disconnected. And there's you can't jam a gigabyte file onto into an Ethereum smart contract. That doesn't work. Now, as far as using NFTs, and I'm just keeping my comments like super narrow. Gabriel was right. I mean, NFTs right now are not especially useful. They're fun when it comes to real estate, but they're not necessarily useful because the image itself, the NFT image, is not a contract. And I think it's really cool for displaying that you own this apartment or a portion of an apartment or a property. It's almost like a certificate of authenticity. I think it's interesting to be used as a digital twin for a legitimate contract.
Yeah.
which
for the hard asset.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a digital twin. I mean, it's like, hey, look, I got this. I got this trading card. I bought this house, and when I bought this house, I got a little model of the house, or I bought a G650, private jet, and I got a little private jet that I can put on my desk. The possession of that little plastic jet model is not a legal hold on the jet itself, and so if someone steals the jet from your desk, they don't own the actual jet.
But that's actually a good point, because you could have the model jet and then go take a picture with your phone to the real jet, and you could flex and never own it.
Yeah, and
now theoretically, with the NFT, it could be verifiable that at least you own the NFT that represents ownership of the jet or the Maserati or whatever it is. So could provide some extra verification on those that just like flexing.
Now, you can make an individualized, watermarked NFT that represents a fractional ownership in some, amazing property somewhere. And, I think that's fun. And I think it's cool. You could conceivably use the NFT if it was like a QR code to access a timeshare, maybe, and say, hey, look, this NFT that I have, which is a QR code. This QR code is requires two-factor authentication back here, but if I have this QR code, I can access this property or maybe an office space or something like that. And if I transfer this to somebody else, I've got to transfer the 2FA functionality so that they can actually access the thing. If they don't have all those pieces, and the contract, they don't own it, but you can have some transferability for it. So, I mean, there's certainly some interesting things to, some interesting applications. I mean, but if you go into the fractionalization of the NFT, there's nothing wrong with fractionalizing an NFT and taking a home and saying, I'm going to create I fractionalize this massive, ski house in Aspen, and I'm gonna split it into 20 parts, and it's a timeshare. Well, the second you do that, you go away from what an NFT is now in its singular form, which is just a piece of art, which is, art's never typically or historically been seen as a security, even though it's promoted as a great thing to invest in. But as soon as you fractionalize it and you tie it to a legal contract, et cetera, you turn it into a security. 100%. So I think what we're going to see as NFTs, or become more expensive, well, obviously they've come off their highs in the last, month or two, but they're still very expensive. you will see holders of NFTs saying, hey, look, I need to limit my downside and I need to take some money off the table, and I'm going to sell my Bored Ape Yacht Club portions of that, or my DGen or whatever, these things. As soon as I split it into two and I start selling it, that it's going to become a security, because they're going to promote it.
And that's where a security attorney comes into play. But ultimately, the right now I think it errs on the side of a lot of art. A few, very, very few have utility. Whereas in the future, I'm probably going to have the inverse, where most, if not nearly all, will probably be more utility based, with some art collections.
I think it's cool. I don't, we don't spend a lot of time in it because Vertalo, we're a digital asset securities firm. We produce digital asset securities. That's what we do. But we believe that this NFT world is going to, and just like DeFi too, they're all going to merge back in because of the regulators, because of the investor protections from the SEC. They're going to end up getting managed slightly differently than they are today.
And that can have some benefits too. I saw an SEC an article last night where they're taking more interest in paving a way, which I think actually opens up markets, because then you get a lot of scared money that can then confidently go in and not worry about violating.
I think it's tons of fun. I think it's all fun. I think it's great. But it's all fun until you buy at the top, or until someone steals it from you.
And I think maybe the last 30 seconds, that security point, the security definitely is a lot of the biggest concern, because you've had entire companies, and then of course there's a lot of scammers going around. It's new. Probably just like when the internet came out. But it's hard to get scammed out of property, super hard. And I think there'll be some very interesting intersections here. So, hey, thanks for having me on. Absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate it. Look forward to talking to you again soon.
Yeah, very good, Chris. See ya.